Greetings, everyone. This is Rock and Roll Spot Connection with my review of Marvel's Eternals, most recent addition to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Eternals is about a family in not like blood family, but the family you choose, sort of extremely long-lived beings reuniting with the end of the world looming. Some quick thoughts, but it's an entertaining movie. Though unlike it actually does the little things a lot better than the big things. It's wonderfully directed and acted. So there is that, but yeah, so it's got that going for it, which is always nice. Our cast of note, we've got Gemma Chan as Cersei, who is an Eternal with matter manipulation powers, truly loves humanity, and currently posing as a museum curator in London, where she dates Professor Dane Whitman. We have Richard Madden as Icarus, Eternal with the powers of flight and optic energy blasts. Kind of distant from humanity. And yes, the myth of Icarus flying too close to the sun is based on Icarus. Well, in the Marvel Universe, at least. Then we've got Kumail Nanjiani as Kingo, who's an Eternal who fires energy projectiles from his hands. He has masqueraded as 5 generations of a Bollywood acting dynasty. We got Leah McHugh as Sprite, who's an Eternal who appears as a child and possesses the power to cast illusions. Brian Tyree Henry as Phastos, an Eternal inventor who was likely the inspiration for the Greek god of the forge, Hephaestus. Has a really well has a really sweet husband and son. That's the scenes with them, in fact, are among the little things that the movie does really well. Then we have Lauren Ridloff as Makari, speedster who is hearing impaired, though she can feel vibrations in the air, like when people whisper between themselves, thinking that she's deaf, she can't hear what we say. We have Barry Keoghan as Druig. He's an Eternal that can manipulate the minds of others. Kind of a dick. Don Lee as Gilgamesh, who's one of the greatest warriors among the Eternals. Cares a great deal for Athena. And yes, he is supposed to be that Gilgamesh. In the comics, it's stated that he's been mistaken over the centuries for various other well-known fictional warrior figures, Beowulf, so on and so forth. But he's also the strongest of the Eternals. There's Salma Hayek as Ajak, who is the Prime Eternal, or the leader of the group. She also is the one that communicates with the Celestial Airship. And finally, next up, we've got Angelina Jolie as Athena, who was likely the inspiration for the Greek goddess Athena. They pretty much say that's the case. Creates weapons of solid light as needed, and can change the weapon. She's like, say she makes a sword or a shield, but she decides, instead of a sword, I need a spear. So she can, while maybe doing some little flippy thing with it, she can turn the sword into a spear, and maybe even modify what kind of shield she's got, which it has some neat applications. Then we've got Harish Patel as Kuran, who is Kingo's manager and valet, simply put. And finally, we have Kit Harington as Dane Whitman, a professor working at the museum that Cersei also works as curator at. Also Cersei's boyfriend. He has a complicated family history. Now, I'll go ahead and just go into all of that. Based upon the comics. So in the comics, Dane Whitman is the Black Knight. He has been an Avenger, including, in fact, Avenger's chair on at least one occasion. That said, he's not the first Black Knight. Before he was the Black Knight, his uncle was Black Knight, and his uncle was actually a villain at it. The line of the Black Knight stretches back to the days of Camelot. And the one constant of the Black Knight is weapon of choice, the Ebony Blade, which is a mystical blade that has some interesting properties to it. There's a reference to the Ebony Blade within the film. At one point, Thena is shown wielding an actual sword, and she's asked if the sword is the Ebony Blade. And, well, it's not the Ebony Blade, but it is a much more well-known blade. There's also a mention of Dane having an uncle who he doesn't have the best relationship with as well. So our spoiler-free breakdown is that we see the Eternals arriving on Earth 7,000 to stop the Deviants 7,000 years previously, but it then catches up with them in the present. Throughout the movie, we go back to we get flashbacks to other points in the past to flesh out the characters, their motivations, as well as their conflict with the Deviants. But we get flashbacks to various points as well. Babylon and I want to say the 6th century BC. Fall of Tenochtitlan. Lots of various historical points. Now for the film's ups and downs. On the upside, we have a cast that works really amazingly well with each other. Chloe Zhao does an excellent job directing the film. The visual effects are great, especially the Celestials. The Deviants also look really cool. They're starkly different from how they appear in the comics. In the comics, the Deviants appear to simply just be, human adjacent. The Deviants in the MCU are monstrous and all have really neat designs. So yeah, that's always a plus. On the downside, that while I mentioned a lot of the a lot of the small moments work really well, a lot of the big moments just kind of fall kind of flat. It's like it is what it is. And while it's definitely part of the MCU, it feels oddly disconnected from it. Even with them mentioning the Blip, Thanos, so on and so forth, the Avengers. And this next one's not really a complaint or not something I'm truly going to hold against me. But there are a lot of points of referring to Icarus as Superman. And I kind of feel like, to some degree, it's a mockery of Superman. Which I'm not entirely against it. I'm really not a Superman fan, but I don't know. It just feels kind of petty. But so anyway, our final thoughts is that it's a good but not great entry in the MCU. It does have some surprises, though none are particularly earth-shaking. Definitely worth the watch. Be prepared that it is a long one. It's over it's not as long as Endgame, but it's still over 2.5 hours long. That said, it doesn't feel like it. So that's a plus. As for the film's rating, it's a solid 3.5 out of 5. Like I said, not great, far from terrible. So, anyway, that is going to do it for now. As always, feel free to like, share, and subscribe. Links to my Facebook, Twitter, Patreon, and PayPal can be found in the description box down below. This is Rock and Roll Spock signing off saying, live long and rock hard.